what it looks and sounds like when a few hundred people are unhappy with the TxDOT proposal that would impact our community.
If you look around the room, there's not one single person that I found that's in favor of this.
It is drastically going to change the atmosphere of being in the country.
And they're not happy about it.
We've been out here for like 6+ generations. So I'm actually on my great-great-great-grandfather's land.
The Inner Loop East Side is a project by TxDOT and the cities of Bryan and College Station to create a roadway that would connect the east side of the two cities. But residents say this would boost development in an area they want to keep rural.
Growth because people move here because they like it is one thing. Growth that's being driven by planners that try and push it into a certain area is not okay. And that's what this is.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Matt Dawson-Mather. I'm the Transportation Engineer for the City of Bryan. And this is the proposed change for the Stella Ranch development. So what's shown in the purple line is a super arterial roadway. So think of a 4 to 6 lane major arterial. It's going to serve eventually as an inner loop for the city of Bryan on the east side. So the current alignment on the currently approved plan goes through the Stella Ranch development, which is a proposed, I believe, 400 lot residential subdivision. And the development partners requested that arterial be realigned at the side property boundaries. We imagine because of the type of roadway it would be built by TxDOT or some other entity like a regional mobility authority. Eventually, TxDOT or that RMA would be responsible for obtaining right-of-way for that roadway and constructing it. So the City of Bryan plan in 2016 had the super arterial intersecting 1179 at Planters Loop. The MPO made a revision to that in 2017, which was later adopted by the city. And has it crossing at its current location. I believe it's Stone Creek subdivision is where it goes through now. The owner of that property is aware of the alignment there, and I believe is planning for that with future development.
How have the neighbors, have you had any response from the neighbors?
We've started a new process where if someone proposes a change to the thoroughfare plan that involves more than a shift of more than 1,000 linear feet, or puts it onto an adjacent property, staff will hold a public input meeting. So we invited all impacted property owners as listed in BCAD. We had a lot of input.
So where it goes through Stone Creek, if you see the purple line, there's currently some houses there. Those houses will just be bought out and
right. So whoever
demoed.
Constructs the roadway would be responsible for obtaining those properties or purchasing right-of-way from those properties.
Well, howdy. My name is Joel Mitchell with Mitchell & Morgan. I'm the engineer for the project. this alignment change is already a negotiated thing. This is our fourth meeting on exactly where this thing needs to go. And, and from our perspective, where this was our plan here, the one that we have proposed. And so we're acceptable with this. The existing thoroughfare plan consumes more than 30 lots, and this only consumes 5 lots. So to us, this is a big win. Yes, we are putting it half and half with the neighbor. We understand that. But who does want this thing? Nobody does. In the future, when this is a super arterial, suddenly that property has great value. But that's 20 years away, and nobody wants it. We don't want it. We'd love to have it moved off of us. But we're acceptable with this.
So as I mentioned, I just wanted to reiterate what I said earlier, that all impacted property owners with the current and the proposed alignment were invited to a public input meeting and had an opportunity to speak to staff and to the development partners and their engineer.
I feel that all the parties were notified, and if no one came forward to object, I think this is a good thing to allow them to be able to maximize their development.
Okay, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And after living here a few years, I've just experienced a lot more traffic and congestion.
So he did something about it.
I started asking some questions and talking to some of the local leaders, and apparently I spoke to the right ones.
Primarily an organizational meeting to get them started on the road to beginning to address some of the transportation issues. In order to fund RMA operations, we go to the Texas legislature and request that $10 be added to the vehicle registration fee. And it allows us to reach out and do other projects that would otherwise not get done.
We're this beacon of light in the middle that's just going to continue to get bigger and bigger as we continue to develop and grow out.
My name is John Polster with Innovative Transportation Solutions, Inc. And we work with counties to find ways to take the limited resources they have on a roadway system and leverage them with partners both regionally, locally, and statewide. So why would a county get involved with infrastructure that are larger than county road capacities? And the answer is that the federal and state funding agencies, when they look for partnerships, they look for those leveraging opportunities for communities that are helping carry the weight on the transportation system. Your MPO here gets a dollar amount, but it's not nearly sufficient to cover the needs of the MPO area. And so naturally, your regional partners want to find opportunities for leveraging. Bryan District is a very good district. It's actually a training ground for moving people out of Bryan District up into Austin. We just lost Lance Simmons, and you got a good district engineer in Chad Boney. Lance Simmons is now the chief engineer for TxDOT. He's number 3 on the ranking. We met with them, and we started doing this almost a year ago, iteratively going back and forth, making sure that the projects we did were projects that the communities wanted and that were the best potential for partnership leveraging. And concurrent with that, as an overlay, Dan Rudge and the MPO and the RMA folks to make sure that what they were planning to do with their entities that are coming alongside them financially enhanced that planning program and their tip. And then we went to meet with several communities to get their ideas on what they wanted to see in the bond program, and we drafted a list that I think is somewhere around here.
A few years, not too long, a few years back, we had a mutual friend. He was a commissioner in Rockwall County, and he used to tell me about all the good things going on and how much money, the funding they were getting for projects and all. And we began to kind of look around for a consultant who might help us move through trying to draw in TxDOT funding, and we got John's resume, and when I looked at it, his name was on there, and I called him. He said, yeah, that's the reason we've been getting all this funding, because John's got all the connections, and he he helped us get our bond program in place, and we brought in hundreds of millions of dollars in TxDOT funds because, you know, as using the bond money that we actually borrowed, and then use that toward the match fund. So, I mean, when he got telling me about all that, I thought this is the kind of thing that, you know, we really do need to look at. With the growth we've got in Brazos County, the timing was probably right. We needed to see if we couldn't get the citizens to approve a bond issue to allow us to go out for debt, and then they use that to leverage TxDOT money that's maybe available for a lot of projects that we're all familiar with, and that list has got a number of projects scattered around, you know, whether it's Bush-Welborn that I think everybody's familiar with. I think I-40 over there around Arrington, and there are a number of projects here that are going to impact whether it's Bryan, College Station, or the county, and so I'm glad we're moving forward with it, and hopefully when we make the presentation to the public, this is kind of the first phase of that. The public will also see what a great need this is.
So all we're going to do is get the projects ready to go, because there are people stumbling. Bill Hell's the chief engineer. He just left. Lance took his spot. Their motto is rack, stack, and pack. They don't look at whether the project has money. They look at the ready to let date. So if you get the schematic done, the environmental clearance done, the right-of-way acquired, and the utilities relocated, and guess what? All that's out of a different pot of money. If you get those 4 things done, that project is ready to let. And it can have $0 construction-wise, and we call that faith-based engineering. You just start on the project, knowing by the 3 or 4 years later, when you get through the regulatory process, somebody's going to drop, and we're going to get put in. It happens every time. And we're going to come alongside you, and this is what we want to do. And this list was a result of that effort between county, TxDOT, the RMA, the MPO, and the cities.
I believe that this proposal and potentially, a vote, having it on the ballot, is an excellent way for Brazos County to participate in the transportation issues that we know we're having countywide. And while, I mean, and we actually plugged in $20 million for off-system, but we know where the congested areas are at within the county, and TxDOT and the cities have all identified those, and we participated in them. They're part of the county, so and they're areas that without some of this type of help, it may be years into the future before they're ever addressed. And as John said, is when we come to the table with money to help TxDOT get them done, we are more likely to be there at the table when the money gets passed out.
John, I have a great deal of faith in what you do, and I believe you've got a great track record that goes along with it. What I would say is, if you've convinced us, how do we convince the public? What's the program there? Do you help on that process?
Yes, sir. And the reason is that as the entity that's putting out the bond package, you'll have to stay neutral. And if anybody asks you a question as a court, you have to be informative as opposed to an advocate. Mm-hmm. But there will be an advocacy process that starts if the court votes to move forward with the bond package, where a entity will create a special purpose committee. It will have funds put into it through contributions, and then it will then put out voters' guides, efficacy pieces, endorsement pieces, etc. And it'll be the entity that's separate from the county, so that y'all stay out of trouble. Mm-hmm. That goes out and convinces people that this is a good thing.
Yeah, I think this is an exciting opportunity for the county. These on-system roads need addressing, and they need addressing as soon as possible. As chair of the MPO Policy Committee, we've been advocating for these for a long time. The money just has not been available. So I think this bond program is prudent, and I'm certainly in favor of it.
From an economic development standpoint, it's really essential for us as we grow as a community.
Matt Pachaska with the Brazos Valley Economic Development Corporation says transportation infrastructure is critical in order to recruit businesses and jobs to the community. But that's not all.
It's also very much a quality of life. As you know, we don't want to have these traffic issues that some of the larger metros have, and this will really help to alleviate that.
Proposed improvements include upgrades to highways 6, 21, 30, and 40, along with enhancements to FM 1688, 2818, and 2347.
All of the projects that were identified in the bond program are considered a priority, that the MPO was prioritized, and part of that prioritization process was listening to local residents.
Brazos County Judge Dwayne Peters says the proposed $100 million bond will help bring Brazos County to the table when it comes to competing for funds.
It'll give us the ability to go after TxDOT money that may not be spent somewhere else and bring that into Brazos County, and so it becomes a multiplier effect.
Elected officials say that the concept of the bond is that $20 million would go to county roads and $80 million would be leveraging TxDOT funds. Brazos County Commissioner Russ Ford says that the bond may take some convincing among Brazos County residents.
I'm never concerned when we take things to the voters. The voters seem to always have the way to come up with the right answer on things. And as I say, at this point it may be unpopular. We may have to, we may have to sell this thing to the public.
What kind of projects are we interested in? So we had, over the last probably 14, 15 months, have had numerous meetings with City of Bryan, City of College Station, local groups, the county, Texas A&M, TxDOT, to say, okay, what are some projects that the RMA can actually play a part in helping relieve congestion, helping mobility in the area? Because what we didn't want to be was just another, political organization, or government organization, I should say, that's just there with, without any real purpose. And so what we did is we went and had all these meetings and kind of came up with what we felt like was a consensus for some projects that we not only that would be valuable to the community, but were projects that the RMA could actually undertake. Okay. We took those back around to that same group, got, again, consensus that, okay, yes, these projects are some projects that would be great for the RMA. And so what they are, we kind of broke them down into, call it a near term, an intermediate term, and a long term. project that we've identified is what we call the Inner East Loop.
Okay.
And quickly, I'll try to describe it, but if you're interested in, you can Google the Brazos County Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO, 2050 plan. And on the 2050 plan, you'll see a purple line that kind of completes what would be the 2818 loop around town. It does include William Fitch. Right now, that's just a line on a piece of paper.
Right.
But as the community continues to grow, I think it's going to be important for us to find another north-south corridor to move traffic and to move people, and then potentially to open up, new areas for folks to move. So again, our longer-term project is that. So right now, on the November ballot, there is a proposition on the county ballot called Proposition B. Proposition B would provide for a $10 per vehicle registration fee to go towards funding projects for the RMA.
Okay.
Proposition A is a $100 million bond leaders say will speed up road improvements.
TxDOT likes to have local government do a part of their match. Well, you have to do 20% usually, but if you can do a little more than that, then TxDOT looks favorably upon it.
County Judge Dwayne Peters says at least $15 million will go towards the Bush-Welborn project, locking in state funding. It would also cover part of 6 other projects, including expansions of Highway 6, FM 47, and University Drive, along with a new interchange near Rellis. Any money borrowed by the county would be paid back using tax dollars. Proposition B would add an additional $10 to vehicle registrations to serve as funding for the Regional Mobility Authority, or RMA.
In all likelihood, from the RMA standpoint, it'll be spent on early stage design, or if there's a piece that we need to step in for the county or whomever, TxDOT, to take a chunk or take a part of the project, that's what it'll be spent on.
Those projects, Moore says, will include environmental studies or right-of-way purchases.
Big thing on the county ballot was the transportation bond.
That's a $100 million bond, and $80 million will go toward TxDOT projects. And the critical thing about doing it with TxDOT is that for every dollar you spend, TxDOT can match $4 or $5. So you really get a big bang for your dollar. And that's what we've pushed for a long time. This is going to make a big difference in Brazos County. There are things that really the most important that's probably the closest to actually could begin is the Bush-Welborn exchange out there, and you've got bicycles and pedestrians and cars and trucks and a train, and it's a dangerous intersection. And by the $15 million that is out of that $100 million bond issue that we have attributed to that, we'll pretty much fully fund that. And so TxDOT should be able to take a look and hopefully begin. And it takes a long time to get a construction. You've got all these other things that they have to do that that I'm not sure about, but it'll get that project up at the top to try to get begin and let's get it going.
Seeking re-election, what are some of the things that you're hoping to accomplish this next term as judge?
Well, transportation is a big one. I mean, and I think it's going to be critical for 20 years. So we need to begin now, and that's what we're doing.
of RFP 23-600-1 Bond Engineering Design Services for the Interloop East. Recommended award is Quiddity Engineering LLC in the amount of $11,201,952. So the $100 million bond issue that was passed in November, that's where this comes from. And it was listed in that bond issue that this was one of the projects, and it had some dollar amounts in there.
Right.
And so that's where the money's coming from, is from that bond issue. But this is to get that project, to hand it off eventually to TxDOT. And they will be the ones that do the project. It will not be the county.
Okay.
So,
To Agenda 9. I understand that this is part of a $100 million bond. I don't remember that being on the ballot. I remember a lot of propositions. Which bond issue is this road project, and the beginning of this, what part of the ballot was that? Which item was that?
I don't know if on the ballot it was actually, because that ballot would have been just this one, that $100 million bond would have probably been a whole page if you'd have listed all that out. But that was part of the proposal, was part of the advertising. It was, everything was, there was lists of projects that this was going to be attributed to.
Okay, so what was what would be the key phrases that were used on the ballot that I voted on in November that authorizes this project to start and the disbursement of the $100 million?
Yeah, we're getting off of topic. If your question is, was this money attributed to that bond? It is. That's how it would get paid for, is that bond. If that's what, and that's what would be pertinent to number 9, is how.
I'm just asking which bond issue that was that authorized
that $100 million bond issue.
Yeah, but okay, you don't know that then.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carries.
Back in November of 22, the voters of Brazos County approved the county's $100 million transportation road improvement program. We met with both TxDOT and the MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, and then with stakeholders from the communities which these projects were in. And we, based on that information, the MPO and TxDOT suggested that the first projects that we start with for the advanced planning, which is your schematic and your environmental clearance, which allows the project to get its right-of-way acquired and utilities relocated, were the Interloop project, intersection at 47 and 21, and then 1688 and SH30. So real quick on the Interloop, it's from SH6 to WD Fitch. We are working with Quiddity Engineering, is the firm that the county and the state selected, and we are in the process of just kind of looking at feasibility with TxDOT and the MPO on what cross-section will look like, and we are planning on having the schematic completed in spring of 2026, and the environmental clearance, which sets the alignment in fall of 2026. When we first started this bond program, the cost index has gone up 70% since 2022. So things are getting more expensive, and the best time to build a road is today. And so we're pushing hard to get these projects environmentally cleared so we can get them, start the design on them, and get them funded and constructed.
Now, I know that TxDOT's very well funded now. Your thoughts on where we are relative to accelerating the completion of the MPO's plans and those types of things, if you wouldn't mind.
See, you're right. They do have a whole lot of money. It's $200 billion over a two-year period, so they got to spend $100 billion per year. But they still have to spend that money in that fiscal year and that fiscal month. And so what we do is we get our projects ready, and then when we're to that point where the project's environmentally cleared, the schematics done, the right-of-ways acquired, the utilities are relocated, and the plans are completed, we call that ready to let. And once it's ready to let, we have a date for that. There was always a project somewhere in the state that doesn't make its let date, and they have to spend that money And so what we do is, since we were outside the system, they look around for projects that can fill that slot, and we fill the slot. So I've never had a project that went more than 6 to 9 months after it was ready to let before it got funded. Because there are very few entities in the state of Texas that are taking control of their own destiny, for lack of a better word, and pushing projects and partnering with the state. There's probably like maybe 9 counties that are doing that. And so they really look to those counties and those partners to have projects ready outside the system so that when they have a gap, we can fill it with our project. We went through a process of picking up the engineering firms, which ran us through into 23, first of 24, and now we've got them on contract, and we've met with all the stakeholders, and we've had all of the kickoff meetings, and now we're driving our schedules, and we'll hit our marks because the TxDOT's assigned us project managers for these projects. So we're going through their process because we basically are an agent of the state now, and we're going through their process. So we're moving pretty quick. Yeah, the bad news is if we're successful, we'll have a lot of stuff under construction at the same time.
Well, I think we're a community of the orange barrels for quite a while, and that's not a bad thing.
No, it's not. I tell people we could hurry up if I could violate your property rights, not care about the environment, and not include you in the process. I haven't got anybody to take me up on that yet.
Well, you can do that, but not without not with us.
Right.
Okay, we're not going along on that,
Nobody's taking me up on that yet.
Yeah. As much as we'd like to. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Last week, residents got a first look at possible alignments, but many left feeling frustrated and with unanswered questions. Several county and state officials will be on hand tonight to hear from residents. They say this is just the start of a long process for a project that might not even happen.
This is a 2-year process. No one is concluding a study immediately, and info from this first study is going to be evaluated, routes edited, and then it'll be presented back to us. It's not a done deal. The study is only a study. The project is a massive and expensive project. There is no money for this project right now. The county would not be building a 20-mile road.
I can't answer, and I will be asking, I can't answer why TxDOT shows that in planning phase, because the study is 2 years long, and there's people that are saying this is a done deal. This is not a done deal. I'm not okay with that line, those proposed studies. I think that they can be moved. They can do a lot better than what they've done on this first round. The county, Brazos County, would not be building a 20-mile loop. The county could never afford to build a 20-mile loop. That would be a state project, just like 2818 was.
And so what we do is, since we were outside the system, they look around for projects that can fill that slot, and we fill the slot. So I've never had a project that went more than 6 to 9 months after it was ready to let before it got funded. To have projects ready outside the system so that when they have a gap, we can fill it with our project.
This is not a done deal. At least where I'm concerned, it's not. And I think I can speak for the judge and really the commissioner's court and probably everybody coming on to the commissioner's court. It's not a done deal. This is a study only right now. I hate that there's confusing information about, oh, this is in the planning stages. It's not. You can call TxDOT yourself. Again, I'm not for it, but I think we should take the study seriously and put our data into it. And I'm going to fight for a route that's least impactful should that loop ever come. And if it doesn't ever come, great.
Commissioners passed the bond program. They told the public what they were going to do. It passed by almost 72% of the voters voted for it, and all they're trying to do is implement what the voters said they wanted. Now,
well,
can I?
That's not true.
A whole lot of questions about what our leaders told us the bond propositions were for, whether it's Proposition A or Proposition B.
I'm going to say, from my point of view,
I understand.
I feel misled.
You look at the actual language that was used.
We can do whatever we want.
I get that.
We haven't
But in the
deviated.
lead up to it,
We haven't deviated. The outer loop, I mean, the inner loop is on the map that we showed the public.
and I know, I'll be the first to admit, I've read the language. Yes, they're covered. They're not outside the law.
You're basing that assumption on what an RMA official stated on a radio station to justify the reason for the RMA. The county never knew or agreed to relinquish our authority because there's nobody at the RMA that knows how to do project delivery. So they had their own
And
things.
I'm not arguing
And the
that.
Prop B was only for the $10 tax, and they had to show some ideas of what they could do so the people would vote for it.
Yeah,
They were
I get
never,
that.
there was never an RMA project.
I
The
stipulate
inner
that.
loop
Sure.
was always on Prop A. It wasn't, we didn't move on B to A, it was always on A because it's illegal to move.
And so what we did is we went and had all these meetings and kind of came up with what we felt like was a consensus for some projects that we not only that would be valuable to the community, but were projects that the RMA could actually undertake.
Okay.
We took those back around to that same group, got, again, consensus that, okay, yes, these projects are some projects that would be great for the RMA. And so
This was paid political advertising.
Correct.
The notice of election itself and the ballot wording, both. Their notice of election, which I have,
I do too.
and the ballot wording, nowhere.
There's no statement of what we're
It
gonna do with
didn't,
it.
that's correct.
And the reason that we do that.
And I know, I understand
can
that.
do whatever you
But
want.
that law's gotta change.
Listen, the reason we do that is because we went out and we had the cities tell us what roads they wanted to do, the town tell us what they wanted to do. We went to the commissioners to see what they've been hearing about things in their precinct.
And as I say, I at this point it may be unpopular. We may have to, we may have to sell this thing to the public.
And we put a bond program together, and they voted on it for a list. We had a spreadsheet that has all those projects, and then I told the county, stay out of the election process because you can't use county money
No,
for
you
advocacy.
can't.
And so they didn't. So what I'm
This is
saying
paid
is,
by this pack right here. And that is worthless in my opinion.
Really for transparency for all the voters and that, they could have come out and said that isn't accurate.
they voted against the $10 tax. That's all that was on the ballot. They didn't know anything about the.
They meaning us. But what I
72% of the population. If y'all are any of the voted for it, fine. If you're not, there's more people out there. But that's a fact. That's what it passed by.
It would be.
They didn't vote for it.
It would be interesting to see if this project would pass, if people knew it was this project and what the cost would be for the whole kit and caboodle.
The county had a website that showed the list and the map. And we told everybody at every public meeting we had, but if you don't spend money to put out mailers, how are we supposed to get a hold of you if you're not paying attention? I'm gonna tell you, the county bent over backwards to try to make sure everybody knew that Proposition A was that list of projects right there. Proposition A, the material that went out, and the list that the Commissioners Court adopted as the project they're gonna call the program for, the spreadsheet, lists the inner loop. So the one proposition that everybody voted for has it. The one they didn't, I read the article, he said, because they had to justify their existence. It says we could do stuff, well, I don't know, like 47, the inner loop, all these other things. Because the county, I was telling the county, you can't let a green novice organization who's never developed or built a road loose on these projects because they will destroy the process.
Really fortunate we have a ton of technical experience on the board. I am not a traffic engineer, but we've got several engineers on the board. Dennis Christensen, who is, I believe, the director emeritus of the Texas Transportation Institute, is on the board. He's my vice chair. He is just a wealth of knowledge. Dr. Christensen, a couple weeks ago, was inducted into the Texas State Transportation Hall of Fame. So, there are a lot of really smart people. We're fortunate to live in a community with a lot of really intelligent, really experienced people. He's one of them. He's just a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience when it comes to transportation issues.
Because they will destroy the process. You got to make sure you control your own destiny, and that's all we've been trying to do. So whether it got out to the public properly or not, we were fighting hammer and tongs to keep the RMA separate from what we were doing as a bond program.
I talked to a county commissioner in a close-by county who shall remain nameless, and that county commissioner told me that the plan was that this road will be the required truck route for big trucks to stay off of Highway 6.
That was not the
That's
intention.
it's not even possible. Every facility that the state has, and you can go look on their website, they have a freight corridor map. Every facility that the state builds is a freight corridor. So whatever's on 6 is gonna stay on 6.
If you think of, say, 2818 north of University Drive all the way up to State Highway 6.
Oh, good Lord.
That's what it looks like.
And it's not 150 feet. It's on average, what?
Between 150 and 300 feet.
Yeah, so.
The design speed, which is what you could drive the car at, is between 45 and 70 miles an hour. Now,
So they'll go
on a
80.
highway,
And as soon as we can get a corridor protected, then you'll know where the road is and the development will bypass it. So, or if it doesn't occur, the road never has to get built.
And we have information on traffic that we need to complete. We have information on field studies and environmental impacts and number of houses. And that's going to generate into a report that says, here's the different options. And those options, when presented to the county, to the MPO, to the cities, will end up showing that yes, this is needed, or no, the no build is acceptable for what the traffic demand is going to happen.
From my side of it, the only way to do a no build is if it's not warranted. And the demographics drive that. So we can get there if that's truly the case. The MPO can change they can say, and it's not on the plan, right? So it's in the illustrative side. So they just put a line on a map. So if they change it, we'd have to just go look at that line, right? For this process. Right, so I'm gonna say something that always gets me in trouble, is citizenship requires participation. Now you're doing it, and now we're gonna help you figure out what we can do forward. But we don't, if we had the power to inform you on everything you needed to know, we would have the power to take stuff away from you too.
The county commissioners, the cities, and TxDOT all have eminent domain authority, so you can take it away from us.
No, not until it's environmentally cleared. And what I'm saying is this project's not even in the plan. All we're doing right now is
We're gonna
preserving
put it in, and all we're gonna do is get the projects ready to go, because there are people stumbling. Bill Hell's the chief engineer, he just left. Lance took his spot. Their motto is rack, stack, and pack. They don't look at whether the project has money. They look at the ready to let date.
If the MPO decides, hey, we're gonna move the road, or we're not gonna mess with it for 15 years, there'll be a time, there could be, that the state will come in and say, we need this road.
Could be.
Right, I said that.
Yeah, that's fine.
So what I'm saying is just because if you
Putting gold on it.
And that's what we're having elsewhere. If we stop the process, that doesn't mean that road's not gonna eventually get cleared. And the people clearing it for the state, they don't do this. They don't do this. They have a schedule to meet, and they will have the required number of public meetings, take your comments, answer them to the report. They'll decide what's the most locally technically preferred alternative. They'll run it through the environmental clearance process, and then you're gonna go to a public hearing one time, and you're thinking you're there to be able to have a point of conversation with them. When it's misnomer, because when they're giving you at a public hearing for the project, all they're doing is hearing what you say.
Right.
They'll
Yeah,
respond to
it's
the report,
1179.
and then they'll clear it. So what we're saying is, we do it, the county does it, they are more sensitive to the things you're talking about here because their life depends on it. The only thing I can say is I don't agree with you, and I don't agree with you because I've seen the value along a corridor go up once the corridor is established. That's it. Every time it's done, the value goes up.
But until it's established.
2 years.
So
right now you can sell,
everybody in there is stuck.
You can sell, you can build a barn. If you build a barn on
you
that
can
property,
give it away for pennies on the dollar
pennies on the
in the
dollar.
next 2 years.
That's right.
You're wrong. You're wrong. I can show you.
Okay. You may have. I'm sure I could find evidence of the contrary. Okay.
Okay. I don't think so. You can build a barn.
But who does want this thing? Nobody does. In the future, when this is a super arterial, suddenly that property has great value. But that's 20 years away, and nobody wants it.
You can build a barn, and so anything you do between now and environmental clearance, all that does is increase the value of what the state's got to pay for. So live your life. There's nothing you can do, and nothing we can do until it's cleared.
How long is it protected? Indefinitely?
Yes and no. It's protected indefinitely, but there may be times we have to do reevaluations to readjust, to assume, see if the purpose and need's still there.
So that would be the MPO policy board.
Which
for
is?
For the major thoroughfare funds.
Which are the appointed officials from the city, the county?
And the two cities in the county, right?
Okay.
A&M.
And A&M.
And Texas.
And take stuff.
Our commissioner's court is the leader. They're the ones that we need to be concentrating on. Some of these people's land is about to be, for better word, landlocked. Yep. For them from ever being able to do anything with it and still having to pay taxes on it.
Burdened until who knows when. Until maybe it'll happen at some point in the future.
We have to say we're against all of these alignments, because even where we're talking about moving it around in here and it benefits you and me and him, and I get over here and I have talked to these people for hours and you've given them no options.
Yeah,
There's nothing here.
it's the same as like over
So
here.
I
I've
have
got
to be upset.
they have a family trust on land over here, and this is there's stories like this all
We
the
got
way down.
and the only way to do the due diligence to avoid as many of that things as possible is to do what we're doing, right? So just because we only showed one alternative, I told you, we're just getting started on the next level of alternatives.
I'm not okay with that line, those proposed studies. I think that they can be moved, they can do a lot better than what they've done on this first round.
Let me make a couple comments. It was very good. I was born and raised here. My family goes back to 1860s. While my property is not impacted by, I'm close, real close to that, probably as close as some of y'all to that, where this alignment is, but just because this project doesn't cross my property, I've had a number of projects that crossed my property in the past. University Drive from the Highway 6 out to Boonville, I gave up property to get that road put in, and we all know that's the east-west, that's where it's going. Boonville Road, when it was expanded, it used to be just a 2-lane highway, farm market road. It's now 4-lane. I gave up property to get that thing done. The extension of University Drive into Oakmont, I gave up property to get that done. So I've been impacted plenty of times in the past. Just because this one doesn't pass me, doesn't go through me, doesn't mean that I haven't been, and maybe in the future, I don't have any idea. But I've been around long enough to know that Brazos County's growing, and I believe it'll probably continue to do so. If you don't protect that corridor, then 10 years from now, or 15 years from now, or 20 years from now, when the need is there, and then somebody comes up and says, well, we got to have it now, it's going to impact much worse, and we can look back, well, should it have been done 10 or 20 years ago? Well, there wasn't any money to get it done. This study is the thing that needs to happen, so we can determine what that route should be and narrow it down to one, and then get it environmentally cleared.
People act like we haven't talked about this for the last 20 years. The MPO's been talking about this for 20 years, maybe plus. It might not even happen in our lifetime, but we've got to continue that conversation. We've got to continue to talk when you have the explosive growth that we're looking to have over here. I mean, we're not advocating to mess up our community. It's just things are happening, and their stuff is coming.
What we're doing right now is a study, and they drew a line on the map showing the significance of a east loop. Hopefully it won't go through any existing neighborhoods. That's what Commissioner Conlon and I've been working on, to try to make sure that it impacts as few people as possible. And then TxDOT then can lock that pathway down.
just recently we had an election where the voters gave you a mandate that they did not want this RMA. The point that the taxpayers did not want this, maybe y'all need to rethink about reappointing somebody and perhaps getting an audit done where all the tax dollars have gone to, for transparency purposes, of course, for the media and for the citizens, so we know where this money was going, because y'all kind of set this thing up without public input until the election.
So Roy, let me correct you.
Okay.
Your information is incorrect. What the citizens voted down was a $10 fee. They did not vote down the RMA. And that fee would have gone toward projects. What the citizens voted down was a $10 fee. They did not vote down the RMA. And that fee would have gone toward projects.
That money can be spent on one thing, and that's projects. And so what we've done over the last couple of years is worked with our municipal partners to figure out what projects are the most important and what projects could the RMA have an impact on. So we went around, we had multiple meetings with the City of Bryan, City of College Station, TxDOT, the county, Texas A&M.
That money would have been used for projects only. It could not be used for that organization, couldn't for the operations of it. So the vote was to not put a fee in place, which was what, when the legislature gave us the ability to ask for that, it was a vote. The citizens spoke, don't have a problem with it. They said that they didn't want it based on a lot of, in my opinion, misinformation. But that doesn't mean that the RMA goes away. It doesn't mean that we don't have an operation there. The election was for the fee, not to whether we should have that organization or not.
There shouldn't be any problem about getting out that information on, funding, right? And where any funding is coming from or going to. Since y'all put this nonprofit, right? Nonprofit together. Is that what it is? A nonprofit?
No, it's a.
It's not a nonprofit.
It's yeah.
Okay. So, and so there shouldn't be any problem with having clear numbers on that, right? Are those available right now?
It's audited.
Yeah.
It is audited. The audit is a requirement.
But I think it's so important that misinformation be stopped, because we're hurting our county when we do that. Every penny is accounted for.
Well, perhaps there would be less misinformation if the information was put out there to the public without having to do a public information request for each individual.
It's on
you
the
see
web
what
page.
you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. It's on the web page. Sure,
Yeah.
it's out there.
Well,
It's all public information.
knowing that it's out there, a lot of people don't know where to go to find that information. So, as much advertising money that was spent to promote this thing, I mean, we could have educated the public beforehand on this, and
The county
that's
didn't
all I'm
spend
bringing.
any money on advertising. The county did not spend any money on advertising.
Not a dime.
Well, the RMA did, and what I'm saying is they probably could have.
RMA didn't spend any money on advertising.
Well, who was advertising for them then?
There was a private group that did that.
It's a PAC.
Okay.
A PAC.
Trip 22.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important that misinformation be stopped, because we're hurting our county when we do that.
I think we're a community of the orange barrels for quite a while, and that's not a bad thing.
No, it's not.
And as I say, I at this point, it may be unpopular. We may have to, we may have to sell this thing to the public.
This really is. This study is the thing that needs to happen so we can determine what that route should be and narrow it down to one and then get it environmentally cleared.
I feel that all the parties were notified, and if no one came forward to object, I think this is a good thing to allow them to be able to maximize their development.
So we need to begin now, and that's what we're doing.
The MPO's been talking about this for 20 years. It might not even happen in our lifetime. Things are happening.
Could have. RMA didn't spend any money on advertising. There was a private group that did that.
It's a pack.
But as the community continues to grow, I think it's going to be important for us to find another north-south corridor, and then potentially to open up, new areas for folks to move.
This was our plan here, the one that we have proposed, and so we're acceptable with this.
It's not a done deal. The study is only a study. The project is a massive and expensive project.
As chair of the MPO Policy Committee, we've been advocating for these for a long time.
We're this beacon of light in the middle that's just going to continue to get bigger and bigger as we continue to develop and grow out.
That's the reason we've been getting all this funding. John's got all the connections.
I've never had a project that went more than 6 to 9 months after it was ready to let before it got funded.
The county didn't spend any money on advertising. The county did not spend any money on advertising.
Not a dime.
Every penny is accounted for.
I tell people we could hurry up if I could violate your property rights, not care about the environment, and not include you in the process. I haven't got anybody taking me up on that yet.
Well, you can do that, but not without not with us.
Right.
Okay, we're not going along on that, right?
Nobody's taking me up on that yet.
As much as we'd like to.
With public outcry in certain areas, that's going to push that alignment to a different location. That's going to make some of you maybe less mad. I won't say happy, but it's going to make more people more angry.
Right, that's why we don't like it and we reject it. I mean, we can't, you have to understand from our point of view, we started this from the stance of we're not going to be divided, because if I do that, if I say I don't want it on my house, you know whose house it's going to be on? It's going to be on.
And then you're in deep kimchi.
And that's why we say